First panel done. And this is the right front panel, by the way. My video is flipped, so I feel like I should apologize to anyone who thought I was left-handed. I would be happy to be representation if I were, but I'm not. This is my right hand. I have figured out how to flip the video so it looks correct, and so all my text that I show you, like on books, isn't backwards. But I thought I should wait to do that till I move into my new place, because I feel like it would be weird to suddenly see the background mirrored. So yeah. But in any case, we're done with the right front panel. I finished the last row just now. I would have done one more row of the single crochet, but I ran out of yarn, and this is just about one skein of that Furls Wander yarn, so that's pretty good to know. I think it's 50 grams, but I'm going to get another skein in a minute so I can check on that. And another thing is, I feel like even for me the armhole's a bit big. So if you also end up having that problem, you can do what I'm going to probably do, which is add just a couple of rows of half double crochet, probably just around the lower edge. Well, it might actually look weird if I only do the lower edge, so I could try to taper it. But to make things simple, I might just recommend doing a couple of rounds of half double if your armhole ends up being too big. So that's something we can think about when it's time to do the sleeves. But now it's time for the left front panel, and I feel like this is the last really complicated part that at least makes my brain feel weird because of how I had to mirror the pattern. It's not that the rest isn't complicated in some ways, but it's not like it's not like you're in the math lady meme, like with all the triangles and the algebraic equations happening. So anyway, let's see if I have one of these skeins already in my Furls tote bag, which I've been using for this project. I do, because I thought I might run out of yarn before I finished that panel, and I was going somewhere, so I was like, well, don't know what project I'm gonna need, but I may as well pack 5 projects just in case. So yeah, this is the Wander acrylic yarn from Furls, and let's see how much is in a skein. Oh, this is Campfire, by the way, the colorway. Yeah, 100 grams and 120 yards. I think I said 50 grams before, or I was thinking that because I have other skeins that are 50 grams. I think because they're a lot lighter yarn. But it's good to know that this is 100 grams and 120 yards, so that tells you about how much you need, at least for one front panel. If you're about this size, I'm 5'8". I had top surgeries, so I may need less fabric in certain areas, but then I make up for it in other areas. So so yeah. Anyway, I think in men's pants, I'm a 42 waist, if that means anything to you. Also have a long torso, so yeah. Or like just barely. I'm probably be better as a 44 at this point, but by that point, I was shopping for pants for my sister's wedding, and I was just like, you know, these work. They fit everywhere except slightly the button. I can get button extenders if I need to. Just gonna buy them. Okay, right. I have everything I need. It would be super cool to just do the left front panel in one video. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that, but that would be cool. I mean, up until the cabling part, so that we can just know what we have to do and then go away and do our homework, by which I mean the cabling, and then we come back to do, I think, the back panels next. That is also lots of cabling, because I've decided to do the shoulder section a bit differently. So for the back panel, I'm going to start with like under the armhole, so it's all just one rectangle kind of, and then we can shape a somewhat smaller part, which will have, it'll be kind of shaped like an M, except filled in because of the shoulders, and then the neckline will be a dip, just so you know what's coming. What did I do last time? Oh, cool. When I changed the left front panel, the pattern for the left front panel, I believe I changed my notes also so that I would know how many to chain. So for this one, the even rows and the starting chain will be worked from the armhole side. Excuse my hair. I am a mammal, it turns out. So. And toward the neck or chest, and then the odd rows will be from here to the armhole. I had to go back and check that so many times while writing. And as we established before, the V stitches in this section are made using treble. I do a modified V stitch, so just as a reminder, I start a treble stitch, and then when I have 2 loops on the hook, I start the next treble stitch and continue until I have 3 loops on the hook, and then with my last yarn over, I pull all the way through the last 3 loops, so that you have 1 top of the stitch but 2 legs going down. So that's my V stitch. And let's see, the starting chain is an odd number plus 5. This is your shoulder seam. So my notes are that I changed 17 plus 5. I think last time it was, oh yeah, last time, since we're switching which whether odd or even starts here, the starting chain was an odd number plus 4, because the chain was for the turning chain, which is the 4 or 5, was for the side that, when it's 4, it's for the side that needs to be more straight. When it's 5, it's for the side that needs to branch out, slant out. So the neck or arm, the neck or chest side is the one that needs to slant outward, so that they can meet in the center of the chest. And as before, at least I am going to end up with an armhole that slants in a bit on this side, which was unintentional, but since I did it before, I'm going to do it this time. and at some point I give a different version where you can stop doing that on this side, and I feel like this is really complicated to just explain, but like if you want to, you can do that version to start with, or you can just follow me, that's fine. And I'll also have the written pattern hopefully on my blog, at least at some point. So anyway, I'm chaining 17 plus 5, you know, just chain any odd number that works for your shoulder seam. Okay, 17. I feel like most of you are returning viewers on this video, but in case you're not, I'm Thorn. I use he, him, his. This is Banros, my co-host, but like goat. And we're working on the Pumpkin Moonlight poet shirt, which is my attempt at crocheting a poet shirt, which I've never seen anyone do that before, but I actually did it last time. Oh, that's the back. Yay! And this is my second draft, so that I can have sort of a tutorial, but also I welcome testers or feedback because I'm sort of nervous about this being my first wearable pattern, and I want to make sure it's understandable and repeatable by people that are not me. So yeah. So now we chain 5. And since this is the starting chain, this is row 0. So let me scroll back down to the left front panel. And since it is an even row, it's like that. So it starts at the shoulder, the armhole, and then goes to here. Row 1, treble crochet in the 6th chain from the hook. So treble, of course, is like double, except we have 2 yarn overs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 6th chain is kind of tight, so my chains weren't entirely even, so I just happened to get the tight one as the one that I had to work into. So then we chain 1. Oh, and this is the repeating pattern. So after this first one, we chain 1 and then work our V stitch across. So that would mean start our treble crochet in the same chain as we just were, and then continue working as if we're doing a normal treble crochet. Then when we have 2 loops left, yarn over another 2 times, skip a chain, go to the next chain, and then continue, you know, just yarning over, pulling through 2 loops at a time until we get to 3 loops on the hook, and then yarn over, pull through all 3. So it's, I don't know if you can see it, but it's like that. That's the V stitch, and then this is the extra treble, and that's the chain 1 space. So we continue across to the last chain. chain 1, and each chain that you work into has 2 stitches worked into it, because you're working a bunch of V's or upside down V's depending how you count it, but like you have the 2 at the bottom and they're worked in the same chain, and then the next 2, and there's a space, there's a space in between the legs of the V, so you skip 1 chain and then work 2 in the next one. Hopefully that makes sense. Oh, you know what? I finished. I wasn't paying attention, and I finished the treble instead of starting the next leg of the V. These rows are turning out to be much taller in this yarn than in my previous draft, and I almost wonder if it's like, did I forget that I worked double crochet back then, or is this yarn just different, or I think I'm using the same hook size, but it's kind of weird because I needed like a couple less rows to get to the point on my chest where I wanted to change the pattern and stuff. It'll be a while before this is muscle memory again. Okay. Luckily, we're almost done with the working into chains aspect, which returning viewers will know that I do not like working into chains. I will work around chain spaces unless I absolutely have to, and I will work into the tops of non-chain stitches, but it just feels extremely fiddly. And I don't mind doing really fine work that people would consider fine, as in like tiny, not like as in it's so good, it's just fine. I mean, I hope it's good, but I'm willing to work on a really small and delicate scale, and I like doing that, but just there are some things that I'm just like, no, this particular thing is not for me. I kind of enjoy having a running joke, or like part of my lore, that I don't like working in chains, which always sounds weird, but I mean like crochet chains, obviously. Almost done. Okay. So we've completed our last V, and by this I mean when you're holding it this way, the V's are obviously the upside down ones. For a while I was confused if they meant like this, which is a right side up V, or this, because you could just call it the M stitch for that matter, or the mountain stitch. It just, like, depending where you want to count from. But I think they're using, I think they consider this to be the V, even though it's upside down. And confusingly, it will actually be like this because we're working down down the chest. But so like that's what I'm calling it too. But so this is the last V, and then we work one more treble crochet in the same last chain, but we don't chain one this time. And remember, this is the side that somewhat slants in, so I think it'll be like that. Yeah, so we're slanting in a bit here. We might actually need that row of half double around the armhole. Right, chain 4 or row 2. You know what, I'm going to double check something that I was thinking about, that I just wanted to make sure that I understood correctly what my notes are saying. Okay, so this is the turning chain of chain 1. Oh good, I was right. I explained it correctly. Which encourages me that my notes might be understood by other people too. Like, granted, I'm the same person, but I wasn't exactly sure what I was thinking of when I wrote this, so that's why I tried to write it in as clear a way as possible. But yeah, row 2, chain 4, turn. Then we work the V-stitch, starting from the first chain 1 space. So we're actually skipping 3 posts in the previous row because there's not a chain 1 space here. So we skip that, we skip the top of this V-stitch, and then we just go over to here. I think that's why it slants in so much, because we are going quite far into the row. Right, that was not a standalone treble, that was a V-stitch, so I have to redo this. And then we do the second leg in the next chain 1 space. So each of the V's are kind of right on top of each other, like pointing up. There's an arrow, and then the legs of the next arrow are on either side of the point, and it's just like a column. And then we chain 1 and repeat that process across the row, and I'll tell you when to stop. And just like last time, I finished the treble again, but we need to anchor the first leg of the next V-stitch in the same chain 1 space as we ended the previous one in. Then we chain 1 and repeat. When I was looking at myself in the camera, I did it again. I was reflecting on the fact that I was actually doing quite a few things before I realized I was trans that just, I didn't know they were for gender reasons, but they just felt better. I mean, or maybe they weren't for gender reasons, I'm not sure, but I attributed some of them to like learning more about feminism, which is also great. And I'm mainly talking here about like I stopped shaving some parts of my body because I realized it just, like with my sensory issues, it just doesn't feel great, and I'd prefer to just normalize not having to do it. So I also stopped shaving my legs a long time before I transitioned to male. And that's fine if you want to do it, but I realized, by the time my legs have healed from that, like, because apparently it's a traumatic experience for my skin, and they look kind of shell-shocked after I've shaved them. By the time they start to heal, like, it's time to shave them again, so I'm not going to do that. It's hard to shake the feeling of like, oh, I should feel weird about this, even though men aren't really expected to, because there are some messages aimed at boys that I did pick up, even subconsciously, but I also picked up a lot of the socialization aimed at girls, so it's weird. And oh look, we're at the end of the row. Right, so we need to do one more V-stitch with one leg in the last chain one space and one leg in the turning chain over here. Then we complete that one. And then we chain one and work a second V-stitch entirely in the turning chain. So this is majorly slanting out. And don't worry about the like leaving space between the legs here, like they're on the same turning chain, so it's just, there's probably not going to be a lot of space between them. Then chain one and do one more standalone treble crochet. So as you can see, we're quite slanted on this side, which is good because we have some distance to cover from the shoulder down, like to the collarbone area. Row 3, chain 5, turn. Well, I figured out our first problem. It's telling me to work in the turning chain space, but do you see any turning chain there? It's just here that I've just created, or this one that I've already worked into. So that is an error. Let me drink coffee while I think about this. I think I'm going to use the row 1 as a guide for right now and see if that works. So we've chained 5. Last time we were supposed to do a single treble crochet, last odd row, in the 6th chain from the hook, so I'm going to assume that means the first chain space. and then I'm going to chain one and do a V-stitch starting in that same chain space, excuse me, and anchoring it in the next chain space. Let me write that down real quick. Okay, I think that fixes the error. Now we chain one and continue across. And we do have special instructions for the end of this row because it's not quite the same as the first row, because we're doing it in chain spaces instead of just the chains. We're working into the chain one spaces between the V's instead of the foundation chain, is what I mean. But we are almost to the place where I can say just repeat row 2 and 3 till it's long enough. I might actually go on though, because it's only been half an hour so far. And I want to see how much of this panel I can get done in this video. Plus I'm kind of having fun. Not that I'm not other times, but I'm just like, yeah, I just want to keep going. This is fun. I'm having a rough few days or weeks with ongoing situation involving my upcoming move, which I'm looking forward to, but I'm just waiting for other people to do stuff that they're not really communicating to me about, so it's really tough, but it's really nice to have something to focus on. Checking to see if I got to the end yet. Oh, I have. Okay. So continue with your chain one and V-stitch until you've worked a V-stitch in the last 2 chain spaces of the previous row. So this one has 1 foot in each of these last 2 chain spaces. And I have to undo this chain one that I did automatically because we do not chain one after that. Instead, we just treble in the turning chain. Thus continuing the intense inward slant on the armhole side. Possibly too intense, but that's what we did last time, so we're going to do it this time. So repeat rows 2 and 3 until the panel is wide enough to reach the center of your chest. I'm going to see how many I did last time. Wow, I forgot that the part after this is actually the part where I did a lot fewer rows. So this first bit is actually 10 rows. So, wow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Just seeing if my count on the in my notes included row 1. But yeah, that would mean I end on a well, even row because row 10, but on a version of row 2. So I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to do anything else after 7 more rows of this, but for right now at least I'll do a bit more. Right, now we go back to row 2. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's kind of exciting to be on the road to getting this pattern actually out there. I've been trying to work on it for a long time, and also I have other poet shirt type patterns that I'm working on, but this is the first one I've actually managed to finish a draft of, and now I'm working on making it readable to other people. So it's kind of fun to practice crocheting and chatting at the same time in a relatively low pressure environment. I really do enjoy doing lives. I've only done a couple of them so far, but they're similar to other events and like groups that I've done and hosted. So I look forward to doing more of them in the future, but probably not till I move out. Let's see. We can talk about yarn. I love acrylic yarn, but it is very difficult to wear in the summer, for me at least. Like it is very soft, but still. Oh, I think my owl pendant is turned around. To learn the story of that, you can check out my other channel with the most recent podcast episode. But yeah, I have really sensitive skin, and I think I need something really breathable in the summer, so I've gotten several plant fiber types of yarns, like bamboo and cotton. So I'm looking forward to making versions of those that are just for the extreme summer heat, because or versions of different poet shirt patterns, because we do have a fairly intense section of just like really hot days, and then it's milder in some parts of the year. So I could certainly wear other things, possibly even longer sleeves in the colder months. I was talking to some friends about how it's really interesting how in this climate, I'm in Southern California, so it's what's known as a subtropical climate, is my understanding. We experience a similar difference in the wet versus the dry part of the year as other places do in the dark and light parts of the year. It's not that winter doesn't get a bit darker, but the major difference is rainfall, and the plants and everything else has a lot harder time in the summer actually. So that's when you see the brown dead fields. And I want to hold this up against the other panel because I'm a bit worried about how it's looking very like one of those rectangles that's slanted. I don't know what that's called. I'm like, do I want that? Because this one is mildly slanted, but not a whole lot. I guess if I try to hold it like this, it's... Okay, yeah, this is... If I try to hold it horizontal, it looks pretty much the same. Okay, good. Rewriting the left front panel was the hardest part, so I'm just hoping I didn't make any more glaring errors. Well, small glaring errors that I know how to fix pretty easily are fine, but just like throwing the whole thing out, level of error would be harder to fix. So I forgot how I ended row 2. Oh right, this is the slanting version. So we end, we close this V stitch in the turning chain, and I think I forgot a chain 1 space before the last V stitch. Okay. Chain 1 and work another V stitch entirely in the turning chain. You say so, past Thorn. And then chain 1 and treble. That was me chaining 5 for a version of row 3 that is actually row 5. Treble in first chain 1 space. Chain 1, work V stitch across. Pretty sure I somehow ended up with the wrong number of loops when it came to the final yarn over, so we're going to redo that. Chain 1. Thank you for accompanying me on this interesting journey, where we certainly learn a lot. I'm actually really happy that it's turning out as something that I can, like a pattern I can show to people. It's slowly taking shape. The skein is currently on the floor because when it's on my desk, every time I pull it, it wants to roll off. So it's easier to just let it be on the floor and then pull the yarn up. You may have noticed that Bonrose has a new setup. I've been doing some sewing recently, which might sound weird coming from me, because I still don't like sewing poet shirts. That's too complicated. But I did feel inspired to just do a bunch of Minoan style kilts, which are mostly rectangles, with some fabric that I acquired partly from my sister and partly from a Joanne's birthday shopping trip. That is also a video. And I'm also just doing a bunch of rectangles of fabric that could be curtains or bedspreads or something like that. I kind of like the idea of just having a hemmed rectangle of fabric that could just be a lot of different things. So it's been fun to put those in a box of finished sewing projects that I will be taking to my new place. And I think I just ended row 3 or row 5 in the wrong way. Let's see, last 2 V-stitch and last 2 chain 1 spaces. Do not chain 1, do not pass go, do not collect 200 skeins of yarn, and treble in the turning chain. So if you're, at this point, if you're worried that it's slanting, I am too, but I think it's going to be okay. And I think I actually will stop here because I have 5 more rows to do before we do the next part, which is relatively short, at least for me, so maybe we can get all of that in one video. But in any case, thanks for joining me. Let's see, is there anything else I have that would be fun? This isn't my pattern, but I'm working on a spiderweb poncho with this black bamboo yarn from Ice. So one of the ones I got in my Ice haul. And I think the pattern is hectanugapatterns.blogspot.com. Free crochet pattern Halloween spider. So I'll try to put that in the link in the description. I feel like I really want to wear this for Halloween upcoming. I've been so busy with thinking about moving out. I haven't really thought about what I want to do for Halloween. I'd like to just hang out with my friends that live near the neighborhood I want to live in and do some witchy stuff also, but it's been hard to think about that with all of this other stuff going on. But I think this will be part of it. And this is fairly thin yarn. I think it's a 3 weight, but I'm using a 5mm hook, the same one as this actually, so that there's more of a drape and also so it's easier to work with. I actually got that idea from my friend Winter Nightmare, who is the one that I got these stitch markers from, the little yoga skeletons. As usual, my camera doesn't want to focus on them, but I'll link that shop too. They have an Etsy and a Ribbler, so I'll link those. But yeah, thanks for joining me. Oh, I forgot to show you Bunrose's little cushion that I sewed, and I stuffed it with some scraps from other projects, so it's squishy. And he gets to sit here instead of on the candle, the unlit candle. He did have a little pedestal in the form of my coaster here that has the mermaid tail on it, but I figured it's nicer to have like a soft cushion. And he has his soft blanket that used to be a scarf. Well, I think that's all. I'm gonna let you go. Thanks for hanging out with me in the Gothic grotto, and see you next time. Cheers.